We're doing this video because we feel like a lot of people ask a lot of questions about our life. We want to kind of give y'all the whole story and the reason why we do what we do. We met in 2004?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we met in 2004, got married, had Caden in 2007.
Yep.
Then we had Katie in 2010. Then Carson came in 2011. We bounced around between Georgia and Alabama with work.
Yep.
Then we suffered a miscarriage and a really bad experience with that after we had Carson. And then we got pregnant with Carly and we moved. She's sitting right over here. We moved to Tennessee.
Yep.
And we moved to Chattanooga in 2014.
I think that's right.
Yeah, because Carly was born in 2014. So we've moved to Chattanooga in 2014.
Yep.
Our family was in the process of purchasing a franchise, and just some things happened, and corporate came in and said, this deal between you and this other guy is no good. Long story short, and we ended up losing that job and that franchise.
Yep.
But before all that happened, the months before all that happened, Carson, our middle son, our second son, he got really sick in 2015. In May of 2015, he went in for, is it 8 days? Or 11, no, 8.
No, I thought it was only 4.
I can't remember the days.
I'm pretty sure
the days mix up. It was like 4 days. No, it was 4 days in May.
Yeah.
And then there was like an 8-day period where he was okay, and then he started to show signs again. And let me tell you, we've been through the ringer and days start blurring together. So we were in PICU for those few days in 2015, in May 2015. Get that out of your mouth, silly girl. And the doctors didn't know what was wrong with him. And they looked at us and said, very rarely do we not know what's wrong with someone, and we send them home.
Yep.
But here's some antibiotics just in case. And that was kind of like, okay. So we went home, did everything the doctor told us to do, followed up.
Yep.
Then in June, he got sick again. And this time we went back and I said, you're gonna figure out what's wrong with him. And the ER doctor said, I agree. So he stayed, and we stayed in the hospital for a long time.
Yeah, it was about a month.
Yeah, it was very, very, very long time. I did not go outside
For
a month. I stayed right beside him. I stayed in the hospital. We switched rooms. It was really hard because he went from this normal, thriving, he was then 3-year-old boy who liked to take his clothes off in Sam's and do all sorts of shenanigans to he started growing up. He started complaining of his body hurting.
Yep.
He stopped eating.
Yep. Stopped
moving. We thought maybe he ate something since he's allergic to a lot of things and has sensitivities.
Yep.
So they did a scope procedure. That was the first time he had ever been under anesthesia.
Yes.
And he came back and he had aspirated. Well, they thought he had aspirated. Come to find out, he had only just partially collapsed his lung.
Yep.
And then they did physical therapy on that, had him on high flow. We were back on the PICU watch list.
Feeding tube.
They had put in a feeding tube at that point because we were there for 10 days nearly?
Roughly, I guess.
Before they had put the feeding tube in because they had IVs going.
Yeah.
What was it, the TPNs or something like that?
It was all pretty much a blur to me because I was working full time. You were there full time. We had all of our kids spread out across all over the place.
Yeah, Carly was only like 4 months old.
Yeah, we had some at my parents' house. We had some at your parents' house. I was working full time and coming to the hospital to see you and him in the afternoon till about 6:30 or 7, and then I'd go home, shower, eat dinner, and then do it all over again.
Yeah, it was not fun. But we got through that. They put the feeding tube in. They did the PT on his lung, got the high flow off. Then the next day they tried to get him up to walk around. And the hospitalist was trying to get him to walk, and he looked at me and said, "It hurts, Mommy," and then he fell to the ground. And that started the no walking. He slept 20 out of 24 hours.
At least.
They did, I kid you not, I have it downstairs, this thick of
18
tests.
pages.
Yes, 18 pages of tests they ran.
Blood tests.
They looked for lead poisoning. They looked for Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Lyme disease. They discovered through all these tests that he had epilepsy, and we had no clue he had epilepsy. He has epilepsy when he sleeps, and he does not move, he does not make a sound, he does not flinch.
Nope.
And it's very scary because when he goes to sleep, we kind of have that fear in the back of our minds of, is he going to have a seizure? He's only had one grand mal seizure, and that was when he had his cardiac stuff done.
Yep.
But that was after his hospital stay. So long story short, they did a 4-hour MRI, which we were told in the beginning it was only going to be a 1-hour MRI. And it came out to be a 4-hour MRI, and the chief neurologist looked and said, he's got this spot on where his hips are and the spinal cord comes down, and it just barely lit up. So we're feeling like it might be, I've heard them say it 2 ways, Guillain-Barré or Guillain-Barré syndrome. So we're gonna treat it with IVIGs, and 1 round turned into 5 rounds. It was kind of like this is a last ditch effort.
Yep.
And before all that happened, he had gotten really bad before the MRI, and they pretty much told us to prepare for the worst. So that was not good, obviously, but
It wasn't fun to hear.
it was not fun to hear. And I don't know if you remember this, because I won't ever forget it. I was in the bathroom and I was screaming because I was not okay.
I don't remember it.
You don't remember?
No.
And I just remember you coming getting me, and you held me, and then that was the first time you made me go outside. And we went and sat on a bench outside.
I remember sitting on a bench outside, but that's all I remember.
And it was just not good. And then we did the MRI. We kind of had a game plan, and they told us it was going to be months and months of
physical therapy.
Yeah, OT and PT, and we were going to have to go to Atlanta and stay for a long period of time. But I told you, we're going to be home by 4th of July.
Yeah.
I said, God can do it. And we had people that we didn't even know praying for him.
Yep, around the country.
And the world.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I remember one lady shut her register down in Walmart when a family member told them about our story, and she right then and there prayed for him. And we just kind of said, no, it's not going to happen. We are claiming it. We're going to be home by the 4th of July. And the 5th day after his 5th round of IVIGs, they came in on the 5th day, and he was awake, which was a miracle because he had been sleeping 20 out of 24 hours.
Yep.
And he got up
and ran across the room.
Yes, and he pulled his feeding tube out.
Yep.
And requested Chick-fil-A
and Doritos.
Doritos. I was going to say Doritos and Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
Those were the 2 things he requested. So guess what he got?
Doritos and Chick-fil-A.
Yep. And the chief neurologist came in, and he was like, he's not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to be up walking around. So fast forward, we were released. We didn't have to go to the in-house patient therapy. We went to OT and PT once, and they said, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. And that was it. Then fast forward to, that was in June and July.
Yep.
And then in August, we had his cardiac MRI. We went to Nashville. We had that done. And he had to be intubated for the cardiac MRI because during that stay, doing all those tests, we knew he had a heart murmur, but we didn't know what extent it was.
Yep.
We knew he had kidney reflux, but we had been told it had resolved, but it hadn't.
Nope.
And long story short, when they were taking the intubation tube out, he had a grand mal seizure.
Yep.
And that was the first time I had ever seen him like that, and that was terrifying. We were not in the room when that happened. They had to give him Versed to stop it. And I just won't ever forget that look on his face. Like, I just won't. And then we got through that. The day we got the results of his cardiac MRI was the day that our world turned upside down again. And we lost the franchise, lost your job, lost our house, lost the car, and we moved back in with family in Georgia for the time being. And during that time, being silly, Carson underwent a kidney procedure, the deflux procedure, where the urine does not go back into his kidneys because that's what reflux does. All the urine doesn't come out, and some of it goes back in and creates infection. So we tried the deflux procedure.
And it ultimately didn't work.
Yeah, that failed. So a few years down the road, when we were now up here in Tennessee, a different part of Tennessee, different children's hospital, he had a ureter reimplantation surgery where they just cut his ureters and rerouted them and reimplanted them. And that was successful. So he's gone through both of those kidney surgeries and ureter surgeries. And then while we were in Georgia during 2015, 2016, he had his open heart surgery.
Yep, because he had a hole in his heart.
Right around the electrical area, and it was called PAPVR, and he had ASD repair. So, and then he had some pulmonary arteries rerouted to his lungs. So we had to go through full-blown open heart surgery, and that was probably the most trying time next to being in the hospital for that consecutive amount.
I think the hospital stay was worse for me than
Was it?
Yeah.
But for me, I think it was a combination of both. I think I was just probably I was so mentally exhausted from being in the hospital for so long, then not knowing what the outcome was going to be. So fast forward, it's 2016. You got a job up here.
Yep.
We moved up here, and we moved to a different part of Tennessee.
Yep.
And we talked to the kids, and I have been doing some research. And I grew up with my father is a chiropractor, so we lived somewhat of a healthier lifestyle. I mean, we weren't perfect by any means, but we lived somewhat of a natural lifestyle. And so when we moved up here, I had done lots of research. We had talked to the kids, and they said, we want to live on a farm. Well, we couldn't go and get a big, huge farm.
Hobby farm.
We have like a hobby farm. So the more I got into it, the more I started seeing the benefits of the things that we're doing. Fresh meat, fresh milk, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, things like that. And we have seen an improvement in things such as his skin. I think they're happier, honestly. Do you think they're happier?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think they're happier. Just, there's so many different benefits to the reasons why we do this, and I haven't really found a negative other than our goats get out. but
And coyotes eat our chickens.
yeah, but that comes with anything. But that's the main reason is the health of him and the health of our kids. And we homeschool too as well, because we think it's important for us to be able to teach our children and have that bond with them. We did do public school for many years, but also with Carson's issues, it was just better for our family. That's a lot of driving back and forth because the doctor is over an hour away from where we live. So we homeschool for medical reasons, we homeschool for spiritual reasons, we homeschool for just parenting reasons. So that's part of the reason why we homeschool. Do y'all like the way we live?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you like the way we live?
Yeah.
I'm just thankful that we live in an area, in a place, in a country that we're able to do this.
Yeah.
So, I hope to continue to do this as long as I'm physically able. Because you're worth it. Love you, buddy. Love you. Love you. He won't say love you.